Your Mazda service advisor smiles, hands you a clipboard, and says you need 4 things done today. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Today I'm breaking down 13 scams happening at Mazda service centers right now. Some are sneaky upsells dressed up as concern for your safety. Some are flat out fabricated, and one of them, the very last one, could quietly drain thousands out of your wallet over the years if you never catch the pattern. Let's get into it. Number 13. The multi-point inspection trap. Every visit starts the same way. They offer you a free multi-point inspection. Sounds harmless, right? A friendly little once-over while you wait for your oil to drain. Except that inspection sheet almost always comes back with red flags on things that were perfectly fine yesterday. Brake pads suddenly marked at getting low when you had them checked 3 months ago and they looked great. Cabin air filters flagged as dirty even though you swapped it yourself last month and still have the receipt sitting in your glove box. Belt tension marked as questionable on a belt that's barely seen 10,000 kilometers of road time. Here's the part nobody says out loud. That inspection isn't really about your car's health. It's a sales document dressed up as a safety report. The advisor needs something to point to before recommending extra work, and a checklist covered in yellow and red marks does exactly that job. It creates urgency out of thin air. Think about it from their side for a second. An advisor walks up to you with a blank sheet that says, "Everything's fine, and there's nothing to sell." An advisor walks up with 3 things circled in red? Now there's a conversation to have, and that conversation almost always ends with you reaching for your wallet. Here's the trick to shut this down fast. Ask to see the actual measurements, not just a check mark in a colored box. A real shop will hand you the pad thickness in millimeters without blinking. A scammy one will get vague fast, mumbling something about general wear instead of giving you a number. It helps to understand why this happens in the first place. Plenty of advisors work partly on commission tied to upsells, which means a clean inspection sheet does nothing for their paycheck while a sheet covered in flags does. The incentive isn't your car's health, it's the number at the bottom of your invoice, but the inspection sheet is just the opening move, the appetizer before the main course. The real money grab is coming up next, and it's one almost every single Mazda owner has fallen for at least once. Number 12. The Fluid Flush Fear Campaign. This one's a classic, practically a rite of passage for new car owners. You roll in for a simple oil change, something that should take maybe 20 minutes, and somehow you leave with a quote for a transmission flush, a brake fluid flush, a coolant flush, and a power steering flush, all recommended in the same visit, all at once. The pitch usually sounds something like, "Your fluid is looking a little dark," or "This hasn't been done in a while, might be a good idea." Notice how vague that is. Vague enough to sound concerning. Vague enough that you can't really argue back without sounding like you're picking a fight over nothing. Here's the thing. Most owners never realize. Plenty of modern Mazda transmissions are actually designed to go well past 100,000 kilometers between fluid changes, sometimes much longer than that. Brake fluid genuinely does need attention every couple of years since it absorbs moisture over time. Sure, that one's legitimate. But coolant and power steering flushes get pushed way more often than they're actually due, almost like clockwork every single visit. And here's a detail that trips people up every time. Dark fluid isn't automatically bad fluid. Color alone tells you very little without an actual test strip or a proper lab check. Some fluids darken naturally with heat exposure and age while still doing their job perfectly fine. Plenty of shops also charge well over $100 for a flush that takes barely 20 minutes of actual labor, and that price gap rarely gets explained to you up front, only the urgency does. It also helps to know how the conversation usually flows. The advisor walks over holding a small sample cup or a dipstick, holds it up next to a chart of ideal fluid colors, and lets the visual do the talking. Nobody wants to argue with a chart, but a chart isn't a diagnosis. It's a guideline at best, and guidelines vary a lot depending on the specific fluid and the specific car. If you like saving money on car maintenance instead of getting hustled every single oil change, go ahead and smash that like button and hit subscribe right now. Because trust me, the scams on this list only get sneakier the further down we go. Number 11. The manufacturer recommended. Lie. Ever notice how everything gets blamed on Mazda itself, like the advisor is just an innocent messenger? Mazda recommends this every 15,000 kilometers. This is straight from your manufacturer's schedule, nothing we made up. Except when you actually go home and pull up your owner's manual, half of what they told you isn't in there at all. Here's a little secret. Real maintenance schedules are public information. You can look them up online in about 30 seconds, sometimes faster than it takes to finish your coffee in the waiting room. Compare that printed schedule against what the advisor just told you face to face, and gaps show up fast, almost embarrassingly fast. A lot of owners are surprised to find the actual schedule recommends a service every 30,000 kilometers, when the advisor just quoted 15,000. doubling how often you're paying for the exact same line item. The trick survives because most people don't carry their owner's manual around in their back pocket, and almost nobody has a maintenance chart memorized. So the advisor quietly borrows Mazda's name and reputation to sell you services Mazda itself never actually asked for. It sounds official. It sounds like you'd be foolish to say no. It's a small lie that adds up to a genuinely big invoice over the life of your car. And the next scam on this list takes that exact same trick and applies it to something a whole lot scarier and a whole lot more expensive. Number 10, the brake pad. Upsell, before you're anywhere. Close brakes are the easiest fear sell in the entire service industry, hands down. Nobody wants to gamble with their brakes, and honestly, that's fair. So when someone in a uniform looks you dead in the eye and says, "These need to go," most people just nod along and pay without asking a single follow-up question. Except plenty of pads get flagged for replacement while they're still sitting at 40 or 50% of their usable life remaining. That's not urgent. That's not even remotely close to urgent. A reasonable rule plenty of honest mechanics actually use is replacing pads somewhere around 20 to 25% remaining. Not at the halfway mark like some advisors would have you believe. The advisor knows fear sells faster than facts, every single time. Your brakes are wearing down sounds a whole lot scarier than the more honest version, something like, "You've still got several thousand kilometers of life left here, but we'll keep an eye on it next visit." Ask for the pad thickness in writing before you agree to anything. If they can't give you a number or they get cagey when you ask, that hesitation is your answer. For reference, most new pads start around 10 to 12 millimeters thick, and many manufacturers consider 3 millimeters the real point to start planning a replacement. Anything still sitting comfortably above that range simply isn't an emergency yet, no matter how it's framed to you. There's also a quieter version of this scam worth watching for. Sometimes the advisor won't even mention a number at all. They'll just say the pads are getting there and let your imagination fill in the rest. Vague language is the entire strategy because a specific number can be checked, argued with, or proven wrong, while a vague feeling of worry just sits there and grows. If you think this trick is one of the worst, know that brakes are just the warm-up. Wait till you see what they do with your air filter. Number 9, the engine air filter. Show and tell. This one's almost theatrical, like a magic trick performed in a service bay. They pull your air filter, hold it up under bright overhead shop lighting, and it looks like it survived a sandstorm in the middle of the desert. Dust everywhere, looks absolutely awful, except a slightly dusty filter is completely normal. It's literally supposed to catch dust. That's its entire job description. And here's the kicker, harsh fluorescent lighting in a service bay makes everything look about 10 times dirtier than it actually is in regular daylight. A genuinely worn-out filter is brittle to the touch, visibly torn, or packed so solid with debris that you genuinely cannot see light passing through it at all. Mild dust buildup, the kind that looks dramatic under shop lights, is simply not that. The visual trick works because it's, well, visual. Numbers on a screen don't scare anyone the way a grimy-looking filter held up 2 inches from your face does. That image gets a yes real fast, before your brain even has time to think it through. Hold the filter up to a window or step outside with it before you agree to anything. Natural daylight tells a very different, much less dramatic story than shop lighting ever will. It also helps to know the part itself is cheap, usually somewhere around $15 to $25 at any parts counter, which makes the dramatic lighting and the rushed yes even harder to justify once you know what's actually at stake. The air filter trick is bad enough. The next one happens to your wallet without you even noticing. Number 8, the diagnostic fee. That magically disappears. You bring your Mazda in because the check engine light came on out of nowhere. They quote you a diagnostic fee, sometimes anywhere from $50 to $100, just to plug a scanner into your car and read the stored code. Here's the part that should genuinely bother you. That exact same diagnostic fee often gets waived the second you agree to whatever repair they recommend afterward. Think carefully about what that actually means. If the fee disappears the moment you say yes to a repair, the diagnostic was never really priced as its own standalone service in the first place. It was a pressure tool, plain and simple. Pay now for the diagnosis, or pay even more later if you walk away and the problem gets worse while you're out there shopping for a second opinion. A legitimate diagnostic charge stays consistent no matter what you decide to do afterward, whether you fix the problem right there or take your car somewhere else entirely. If the price magically vanishes the instant you agree to extra work, that detail alone tells you everything you need to know about how that fee was structured from the start. A good way to test this without sounding confrontational: simply ask up front, before any work begins, whether the diagnostic fee applies regardless of what you decide afterward. A straight answer, yes or no, tells you a lot about how that shop actually operates behind the scenes. It's worth writing that answer down, too, on the actual estimate sheet if you can get it in writing, since a verbal promise in the waiting room has a funny way of changing once the invoice gets printed. Sneaky? Sure. But the next scam doesn't even need you to be in the building. Number 7. The tire rotation that never actually happened. This one's sneaky because you genuinely can't see it happen behind the scenes, and almost nobody ever actually checks. You pay for a tire rotation as part of your service, drive off the lot, and just assume the work got done because, well, why wouldn't it have? Here's a simple way to catch this red-handed. Chalk mark or tape mark one specific tire before you drop your car off for service. If that mark is still sitting on the exact same corner of the car when you pick it up later, the rotation simply didn't happen, no matter what the invoice says. Some shops skip the rotation entirely because it eats up valuable bay time for basically zero extra profit on their end. They'd honestly rather move you through the line faster and get to the next paying customer waiting outside. It sounds harmless on the surface, just a missed rotation, no big deal, right? Except skipped rotations lead directly to uneven tire wear over time. And uneven tire wear means you end up buying a brand new set of tires sooner than you really should have. That free rotation you technically paid for but never actually got just quietly cost you hundreds of dollars somewhere down the road. And here's the part that makes it sting even more. Tire rotations usually take less than 15 minutes for someone who actually knows what they're doing. It's one of the easiest line items to skip quietly because the cost of getting caught is basically nothing, while the cost of doing it properly eats into a tech's time on every single car that rolls through the bay that day. A full set of replacement tires often runs several $100s, sometimes well past $700 or $800 depending on the size and brand, which puts a skipped 15-minute rotation in real perspective once you actually do the math. That one costs you later. This next one nickel and dimes you right now, on the spot. Number 6. The wiper blade and light bulb. Markup small parts, surprisingly big margins. A basic wiper blade that costs maybe $8 to $12 at any auto parts store down the street can show up on your service invoice marked up several times over, sometimes with a separate installation labor charge tacked on for a job that takes under a single minute to do, by hand. Same exact story plays out with bulbs. A headlight bulb you could swap yourself in 5 minutes flat with a quick video tutorial gets bundled together with a diagnostic charge and a labor fee, the kind of combo that somehow turns a $15 part into a $60 or $70 line item on your final bill. These small items rarely get questioned because the dollar amounts feel too tiny to bother arguing about in the moment. Who's going to fight over $20 extra on a wiper blade? But stack 5 or 6 of these tiny upsells together across a single visit, and suddenly your final bill jumped by $100 or more, all on parts that took less time to physically install than it took someone to type up the invoice line. A quick way to sidestep this entirely is simply asking whether you can supply your own part. Plenty of shops will still install a wiper blade or bulb you bought yourself for a small flat labor fee, cutting the markup out almost completely. Small charges add up fast, but the next pitch isn't small at all. Number 5, the extended warranty pressure. Pitch. This is where things start getting a little more aggressive, a little more personal. Somewhere during your visit, usually right after they've already listed off a few concerning findings from that earlier inspection, someone casually mentions an extended warranty or a service plan, and suddenly the timing feels just a little too convenient to be a coincidence. The pitch almost always leans hard on fear. Your warranty's about to expire. You really don't want to miss this window. This could honestly save you thousands down the line, all while you're still sitting there mentally processing whatever expensive repair they just recommended 30 seconds earlier in the same conversation. Here's what actually matters in all of this. Extended warranties can genuinely be worth it for some drivers, depending entirely on the vehicle, the price being asked, and exactly what's covered versus what's quietly excluded in the fine print. But that decision absolutely should not be made under pressure, sitting in an uncomfortable waiting room chair, sandwiched between bad news about your brakes and a countdown clock on some today-only discount that conveniently expires the moment you walk out the door. Ask for the paperwork to take home and read on your own time. A genuinely good deal will still be a good deal tomorrow, and any plan that truly only works if you sign today is telling you something important about how confident they are in its actual value. If you're learning something new every single time you watch one of these videos, do yourself a favor right now and hit that subscribe button, because dealerships are quietly counting on you never knowing any of this stuff, especially this next trick that they hide. So inside something that sounds like a discount. Number 4. The bundled package deal. That isn't actually a deal. Packages sound efficient on paper. One simple price, several services bundled together, done in one trip. Except when you actually sit down and break apart what's hiding inside that bundle, you're often paying for things you genuinely didn't need, all stacked alongside the one thing you actually came in for in the first place. Say you came in purely for an oil change, nothing else. The package suddenly includes a tire rotation you never asked for, a fluid top-off you didn't actually need, and a filter swap that conveniently was already done 2 visits ago and barely needs touching. Add up each individual service at its normal standalone price, then compare that total against the discounted package price sitting on your invoice. More often than most people expect, the bundle isn't actually saving you a single dollar. It's just hiding extra unnecessary charges inside one tidy number that sounds efficient and reasonable on the surface. Sometimes the math works out to literally zero savings. The package price lands within $1 or $2 of what the same services would cost individually, which means the only thing the bundle actually sold you was the illusion of a deal. The package deal feels like a win because it's simple. One number, one decision, no complicated math required on your end. But simple isn't the same thing as cheap, and those 2 words get confused a lot more often than they should. A quick trick that takes the guessing out of this entirely. Before you agree to any package, ask the advisor to write out each individual service and its standalone price on a separate line, right there on the invoice. Most genuine deals will hold up fine under that kind of scrutiny. The ones that don't tend to get a little fidgety the moment you ask. Bundles hide charges. This next one hides behind a favor you didn't ask for. Number 3. The loaner car. Guilt trip. You drop your Mazda off for service, they hand you the keys to a shiny loaner car, and suddenly there's this unspoken pressure hanging over the entire rest of your visit. They did you a favor, so saying no to any extra recommendations afterward starts to feel awkward, almost a little rude, even though logically it shouldn't. That feeling isn't an accident, by the way. A free loaner quietly creates a sense of obligation in most people's heads, even when that loaner has absolutely nothing to do with whether the recommended repairs are actually necessary or not. Some advisors lean into this directly, almost casually mentioning the loaner right before listing off a fresh round of additional recommended work as a subtle little reminder of the favor they just did for you, whether you asked for it or not. Separate the kindness from the invoice in your head. A loaner car doesn't make a brake job any more necessary than it already was. It just makes saying no feel a whole lot harder than it normally would. Don't let simple convenience quietly talk you into paying for a repair. Your car doesn't actually need yet. Guilt's one lever. Fear of losing your warranty is the next one they'll pull. Number 2. The your warranty requires this. Myth. This is one of the most common scare tactics across the entire service industry, not even unique to Mazda dealers specifically. Service advisors will imply, sometimes directly state, that skipping a dealer-recommended service is going to void your warranty completely. For most routine maintenance, that's simply not how warranties actually work. You're generally allowed to get oil changes, filter swaps, and plenty of other basic maintenance done at independent shops of your choosing, as long as you keep your receipts and follow the manufacturer's actual published schedule, the one printed in your owner's manual, not the conveniently different one upsold to you at the front counter. In the United States, this protection is actually written into federal consumer law, and similar consumer protections exist in plenty of other countries too. A dealer cannot legally require you to use only their service department just to keep your warranty valid for ordinary maintenance. The myth survives year after year because most people never sit down and read their warranty paperwork closely, and you'll void your warranty sounds scary enough on its own that nobody really wants to be the one to test it and find out the hard way. Keep your service receipts no matter where you end up getting your work done, dealer or independent shop. That paperwork is your proof, and it's usually all you actually need to keep your warranty fully intact from end to end. But the final scam on this entire list ties every single one of these together into one bigger pattern, and it's the one almost nobody catches until it's already too late. Number 1, the rotating recommendation list. Here's the pattern once you actually start paying close attention across multiple visits. Visit after visit, there's always something brand new flagged on the sheet, conveniently priced just under whatever number you seem comfortable spending that particular day. First visit, it's the brake pads. Next visit rolls around, brakes are suddenly perfectly fine, no concerns there. But now it's a cabin filter and a fluid flush instead. Visit after that, those two are fine as well, but now there's a belt that should probably be looked at soon, before it becomes a real problem. Individually, every single one of these recommendations sounds completely reasonable on its own. Stack them together across a full year of regular visits though, and you start to notice something uncomfortable. The list never actually empties out completely. There's always exactly one more thing waiting for you next time, like clockwork. That's not really inspection results building up naturally over time. That's a sales funnel quietly disguised as a routine maintenance schedule. The fix here is refreshingly simple. Keep a written log of every single recommendation, every visit, and the actual outcome each time. Patterns that easily hide across separate, spaced-out visits become obvious almost immediately the second you put them all side by side on one single page. Try this the next time you're in the waiting room. pull out your phone and jot down exactly what's being recommended, the date, and the price. Do that 3 visits in a row, and you'll either confirm the place you're going is completely above board, or you'll catch a pattern that's been quietly draining your wallet for months without you ever noticing. It only takes a few minutes each visit, and that small habit is often the single easiest way to tell a genuinely honest shop, apart from one that's just better at hiding the same old pattern. You just saw all 13 scams. What to watch for, what to question out loud, and what to flat out say no to before ever signing anything at the front counter. Write these down somewhere. Bring this list with you to your next appointment, and watch closely how the entire conversation shifts the moment they realize you actually know what you're looking at. But here's the thing. Almost nobody talks about. There's one simple phrase you can say to any service advisor that instantly stops the upsell pressure cold, every single time. That video's on your screen right now. Click it before you forget.